When was the last time Star Wars made you feel the way it used to? Not entertained or impressed by a visual effect. I mean that specific feeling, the one that made you care about this universe in the first place. Because here's what I think is actually happening. Star Wars isn't dying the way a movie bombs. It's dying the way a civilization dies. Slowly, through a dozen different cracks. None of them fatal on their own. All of them happening at the same time. I mapped 12 of them, and the one thing that should terrify every person who loves this franchise, the thing that Star Wars literally wrote the playbook on, is that empires don't feel like they're falling while they're falling. They feel like they're managing the problem, right up until they're not. Let's start with what everyone already sees. The sequel trilogy made $2 billion. Nobody's arguing the movies stopped making money. What they stopped doing is mattering. The Mando and Grogu film, Disney's reset button, is already being projected to open below Solo. Announcements get made, slates get revealed, then projects disappear without explanation. The Republic didn't fall to an invasion either. It fell to bureaucratic inertia nobody stopped in time. Star Wars theatrical isn't dead, it's in the exact same pre-collapse stasis. And stasis in a franchise this size doesn't mean standing still, it means decay. Mark Hamill said he's done. Harrison Ford said he's done. Carrie Fisher is gone. The connective tissue between the original trilogy and everything that follows isn't an idea. It's those specific faces, those voices. In Legends, when major characters died, the galaxy mourned. But it continued, because the institutions outlasted the individuals. Disney had one chance to use those faces to build something that would outlast them. But they didn't. When they're gone, really gone, not de-aged CGI versions, the only structures left are an IP file and a theme park. That ending can't be reversed. This one sounds like a good problem to have. Disney Plus launched with one Star Wars show, then two, then Andor, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, The Acolyte, every single one arriving with the same marketing energy, the same most important Star Wars story ever told framing, and the same result. Audiences either loved it or forgot it in 3 weeks. Think about what happened when Palpatine built a second Death Star. The rebellion didn't scatter, they attacked it, because a broken symbol doesn't repair itself by being rebuilt larger. Disney didn't learn that lesson. They built 12 Death Stars in 4 years, and nobody fears any of them. When everything is important, nothing is. This ending requires no executive decision, no failed film. It's happening entirely outside Lucasfilm's control. Every new Star Wars project now arrives pre-condemned. The Acolyte was declared dead before a single episode screened. Andor, genuinely the most critically acclaimed Star Wars content in a decade, spent half its cultural life being argued over by people who hadn't watched it. Quality isn't the variable. Jake Lloyd was 10 years old when he played Anakin Skywalker. By the time he was a teenager, he'd quit acting entirely and said the role had ruined his childhood. Kelly Marie Tran deleted her entire social media presence because of what the fandom did to her. New audiences see that. They see the war that's already been declared before they've bought a ticket, and they make a rational decision. They watch something else. The Jedi Order spent its final years so internally fractured that it couldn't extend trust to anyone outside its own hierarchy. Anakin Skywalker walked through that door every single day. The Council didn't reject him because he was dangerous. They rejected him because he didn't conform to what a Jedi was supposed to look like. The fandom is doing the exact same thing to every new Star Wars story. There's a special moment that if you grew up loving Star Wars, you know exactly which one it was. A parent puts on A New Hope. A friend won't shut up about the Clone Wars in 8th grade. A Warren Legends paperback gets passed between siblings until the spine gives out. Nobody scheduled that moment. Nobody marketed it. It just happened. That's how mythology transfers, and that transfer is breaking. Every great franchise runs on generational inheritance. Tolkien readers raise Tolkien readers. Lucas's generation raised children who came back for the prequels, who raised children who came back for the sequels. The chain held because the handoff was organic. The Acolyte was designed to bring in a younger audience, but it was canceled after 1 season, and the core Mandalorian viewership skews 35 to 55. The midichlorian analogy here is accurate. Every generation that doesn't inherit the mythology lowers the count, and you can't engineer that inheritance. Disney's version of that moment is a Disney Plus subscription and a corporate release calendar. That's not how it works. If that window closes, the franchise becomes nostalgia only, which is the polite word for over. In 2014, Disney decanonized nearly 4 decades of expanded universe material and called it creative freedom. What it actually created was 2 competing mythologies with no bridge between them. 2 fan bases with fundamentally incompatible loyalties and no shared foundation. The Republic's 1,000-year absence of the Sith produced generations of Jedi with no lived experience of what the Sith actually were, no cultural memory of how they moved, how they operated, what they were capable of. When Palpatine emerged, the Order had no framework to recognize him. The silence hadn't protected them, it had hollowed them out. Disney created the same problem, not in the Force, in the fandom. Millions of fans with no shared mythological ground, and you can't rebuild cultural memory. You can only inherit it. Every year the schism exists, the wound gets wider. Legends fans age into gatekeepers, and the next generation has no reason to learn which version of the galaxy is real. What Disney inherited was a mythology engine. What they're operating is a brand asset. George Lucas built Star Wars because he believed American culture had lost its sacred stories and needed new ones. Not entertainment, mythology, something designed to outlast its creator. That's what was on the table in 2012. Every creative decision now passes through a single filter. Does this protect the IP? Not does this mean something and serve the story? Only one of those questions gets asked. The Jedi Order made the same trade. By the final years of the Republic, the Jedi had drifted so far from their original function that they couldn't recognize a Sith Lord sitting across from them in the Senate chamber every single day for 13 years. The Jedi stopped asking what the Force required of them and started asking what the Senate required of them. The result was an institution that had forgotten its function while remaining convinced it still was. And I understand that a $4 billion acquisition has to justify itself. But mythology can't be managed to a return on investment, and an institution that exists to protect an asset instead of serve a mission will make defensible decisions right up until the moment they become fatal ones. Palpatine's genius wasn't creating the Empire, it was designing it to prevent any rival power center from emerging beneath him. No admiral could accumulate too much authority, no Grand Moff could build a personal loyalty base that superseded Imperial loyalty. The hierarchy was deliberately fragile from the top down, which meant the moment Palpatine died, there was nothing holding the structure together. Lucasfilm's creative leadership since 2012 has operated on that same design principle. Directors changed at the last minute, a complete sequel trilogy greenlit without a coordinated story architecture, the Rian Johnson trilogy announced, gone. The Kevin Feige project announced, gone. The Damon Lindelof film announced, gone. That's not creative development. That's an institution designed to prevent any single vision from becoming powerful enough to challenge the seat at the top. Palpatine's flaw wasn't that his empire was weak, it was that it was only as strong as he was. The moment he was gone, the design revealed itself. Lucasfilm built the same structure, and the first real moment of institutional stress will produce the same result. Denis Villeneuve's Dune did something at the box office that nobody in Hollywood expected. It built mythology, not nostalgia, not an IP, mythology, the kind that makes audiences feel like they've discovered something that was always supposed to exist. Foundation is doing it on television, The Last of Us did it with adaptation. For the first time in 40 years, the grand saga niche that Star Wars owned completely is being genuinely contested. In Legends, the Empire's greatest strategic failure wasn't losing Endor. It was leaving the Outer Rim unsupervised long enough for warlords to fill the power vacuum Palpatine left behind. The Empire didn't lose the galaxy in a battle, it lost it in the absence of one. Every year without a defining Star Wars moment is a year Dune spends building mythology from scratch. And Dune has a structural advantage. Herbert wrote 10,000 years of history. Disney is running on borrowed emotional capital from 6 films that ended more than 20 years ago. Power abhors a vacuum, always. This ending doesn't require Star Wars to die. It just requires something else to become what Star Wars was. and that process is already underway. You can taste blue milk on Batuu. You can build a lightsaber. You can fly the Millennium Falcon. Galaxy's Edge is the most fully realized physical Star Wars experience ever created. Initially an overcrowded land at the Disney parks, it has now often become a quiet area. Palpatine didn't build the Death Star to win battles. He built it to make battle irrelevant, to make resistance feel so futile that the symbol alone would hold the galaxy in place. Terror sustained the symbol, remove the terror, and you need the story to do the work. Galaxy's Edge is that same gambit without the mechanism, a total immersive experience designed to make the films almost optional. And it works, until people need a reason to go that isn't just memory. When a franchise retreats to experience only, it becomes a museum, a place you visit to feel nostalgic about something you loved once. That's not a fan base, that's a memorial. The fallback position is already visible. Star Wars as a story ends, Star Wars as a mall attraction continues indefinitely. Fully animated stories, completed alternate timelines, restored Legends narratives that Lucasfilm retired 15 years ago. AI-generated Star Wars content is already a production pipeline, not a hobby, and a significant portion of the fandom finds it more emotionally satisfying than the official releases. What happens when the unofficial material wins the cultural conversation? The franchise doesn't die from competition, it dissolves, like a Sith philosophy splintering into a dozen competing traditions after central authority collapses. Lucasfilm can't copyright every arrangement of a galaxy far, far away. The only protection against this ending is irreplaceable emotional value in the official content, and that value has been in structural decline since 2019, as the competition has become infinitely scalable. Comcast, Apple, Amazon, Sony, any one of them could absorb Star Wars inside a larger Lucasfilm acquisition. And Disney, under ongoing financial pressure to divest non-core assets, could simply part with the IP. Every great empire in Star Wars history ends through transfer of power, not through defeat. The Republic became the Empire transferred to the First Order through Palpatine's contingency, the First Order dissolved back into the Sith Eternal. Power never disappears in that galaxy, it just changes hands. If Disney sells, Star Wars doesn't end, it transforms. Whether that transformation is a resurrection or a final collapse depends entirely on who buys it and what they do in the first production meeting. None of these 12 endings are hypothetical. Every single one has historical precedent, inside Star Wars mythology and outside it. The franchise that was explicitly designed to teach us how empires fall is now exhibiting every symptom of the falls it dramatized, all 12, simultaneously. Palpatine didn't just build an empire, he engineered his own succession into the galaxy's infrastructure. Order 66, his clones on Biss, the Sith Eternal on Exegol, the Final Order in the Unknown Regions, his empire was designed to collapse and rebuild because he understood something Disney Star Wars hasn't. The only franchise that never truly dies is one that plans for its own ending. If someone at Lucasfilm is sitting in a room right now with a contingency, not for keeping this version alive, but for what Star Wars becomes when it isn't, then the franchise survives. If nobody's holding that plan, then we're not watching Star Wars die. We're watching Star Wars become the most accurate story about power it ever claimed to be. May the dark side be with you.